Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So the long-awaited Social Security COLA increase has finally been announced. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down everything that you need to know. But before we go ahead and dive into for today, if you would like to receive up to $200 in free stock or $200 in free cash, in a pinned comment below, I will be leaving a link to Robinhood. All you have to do is once you click on that link is just sign up for a free account and then simply link your bank account. You do not even have to make an opening deposit. At that point in time, Robinhood will be sending you one free stock worth all the way up to $200. And if you'd rather just have the cash, all you have to do is once you receive the free stock is just sell it for what it's worth and then transfer the cash value right back to your bank account. Okay, so diving right into for today. So even though the government is still shut down, they did call back staffers into the Bureau of Labor Statistics in order to calculate September's inflation numbers, mainly so the Social Security Administration could do their calculations as well for the cost of living adjustment increase for all Social Security beneficiaries for the year of 2026. And today, it was finally announced. We finally have the inflation numbers, and therefore we also have the cost of living adjustment increase number. This is going to be official now. There's no longer projections. This is actually official today. So this is straight from CNBC today, Friday, October 24th. They said that inflation rate hit 3% in September, lower than expected, long-awaited CPI report shows. So once again, according to CNBC, prices that people pay for a variety of goods and services rose less than expected in September, according to a Bureau of Labor Statistics report on Friday that keeps the door wide open for another interest rate cut next week. The Consumer Price Index showed a 0.3% increase on the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 3%. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been looking for a respective readings of 0.4% and 3.1%. The annual rate reflected a 0.1 percentage point uptick from August. So even though it is less than expected, it is still higher than what it should be, because what the Fed looks for, what we look for, is a 2% annualized inflation rate. It's still 3%, so it's actually trending upwards, mostly because of the tariffs that have been implemented, causing prices to once again rise. Now they go on here to say that excluding food and energy, core CPI showed a 0.2% monthly gain and an annual rate also at 3% compared to respective estimates of 0.3% and 3.1%, the latter being unchanged from a month ago. Core CPI on a monthly basis had posted 0.3% gains in both July and August, and the CPI reading is the only official economic data allowed to be released during the government shutdown. Now you can see up on the screen, this is what inflation has been month by month, annualized over the past few years. So you can see that it actually reached its lowest point this year in April. It came all the way down to 2.3% annualized. We were getting much closer to that 2% figure, but because of the tariffs that started getting implemented, we see that now slowly rising, and now we're right back up at 3%. We definitely don't want to continue escalating this all the way up to 4%, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Again, we want this official inflation number annualized to go down to 2%, but once again, we are seeing this rise once again. What is going to happen? We will have to wait and see. Now they go on here to say that the BOS released the data specifically because the Social Security Administration uses it as a benchmark for cost of living adjustments in benefit checks. Otherwise, the federal government has suspended all data compilation and releases until the fiscal impasse is settled in Washington, D.C. CPI originally was scheduled for release on October 15th. So there was a delay of right around 9 days. Now, in addition to providing a COLA guide, the CPI release is the final significant data point the Federal Reserve will get before it makes its interest rate decision next week. The Fed has a 2% inflation rate goal, and once again, that is now rising, getting closer, to 3.5%, 4%. And the headline measure was last below that level all the way back in February of 2021. So we have not been at a 2% inflation rate since February of 2021. That was more than 4 years ago. Inflation rose since then all the way up to 8.7%, even at 9% And now, even though it started trending closer to 2%, now we're on our way back up to 3.5%, and perhaps even 4%. Now, since we do have this official number for September, we were able to figure exactly what the cost of living adjustment would be for all Social Security beneficiaries, whether you receive retirement benefits, whether you receive SSI benefits, or whether you receive disability benefits. These are no longer just projections. We have an official number now released from the Social Security Administration, and that came in at 2.8% according to CNBC. This is what it means for you. So the Social Security cost of living adjustment will be 2.8% in 2026. The Social Security Administration said on Friday. Social Security retirement benefits will increase by about $56 per month on average starting in January, according to the agency. And the COLA provides an annual adjustment to both Social Security and supplemental security income to help ensure those benefits keep up with inflation. About 75 million people receive benefit checks from these programs, but for beneficiaries who rely on those payments to cover essential expenses, the size of this year's COLA might not ease their struggles with higher prices. So with that said, leave your thoughts and comments below. Are you happy with a 2.8% increase, or are you unsatisfied? Now, at the beginning of this year, they were thinking that the cost of living adjustment would dip all the way down to 2%, because for this year, in 2025, the cost of living adjustment came in at 2.5%. It's slowly been going downward. So they thought that inflation would keep rising by a slower pace, and therefore the cost of living adjustment would be below 2.5%, perhaps as low as 2%, even dipping into the ones, but instead it's going to be 2.8%. So next year's cost of living adjustment is actually going to be higher than this year's cost of living adjustment. That is very surprising. And once again, most economists are blaming the tariffs that the Trump administration has placed on other countries. Now they go on here to say that over the last 20 years, the Social Security COLA has averaged 2.6%, according to the Senior Citizens League, a nonpartisan senior group. The cost of living adjustment was once again 2.5% in 2025. So you can see over the last few decades what the cost of living adjustment was. Of course, that big one back in the 80s was over 14%, and then we had that big one a few years ago at 8.7%. Since then, it slowly started dipping down, but we are going to see a higher cost of living adjustment once again next year in 2026 at 2.8% when compared to this year's COLA at 2.5%. Now, as far as how you can estimate what your cost of living adjustment is going to be next year in 2026, whether you receive SSI, SSDI, or retirement benefits, they go on here to say that to estimate the increase to your 2026 benefit check, beneficiaries can multiply their current monthly benefit amount by 2.8% or by 0.028 other factors. The size of the Medicare Part B premiums, which are typically deducted directly from benefit checks and elected tax withholdings, will also affect monthly benefit payments. So the standard monthly Part B premium could go up by 11.6% or $21.50 per month to $206.50 per month from $185 per month, according to projections from the Medicare trustees. Higher earners may pay additional monthly costs known as income-related monthly adjustment amounts, or IRMAA. So that is something that you'll definitely have to keep in mind, that even though you might be receiving an increase of, let's say, like $55 a month, your Medicare Part B premium is also going to be increasing by right around $21.50 per month. Therefore, your increase isn't exactly going to be $55 in total, because your Medicare Part B premium is also going to be increasing. And of course, that amount is going to be deducted from your increased checks. Now, they go on here to say that some experts and advocates have questioned whether another formula for your cost of living adjustment would be better suited to measure the inflation retirees experience. So advocacy groups, including the Senior Citizens League, have lobbied to have the measure for the COLA change to the Consumer Price Index for the Elderly, or CPIE for short. That index puts greater emphasis on categories like medical care, housing, and recreation, according to the Bipartisan Policy Center. So this year, for example, or next year, I guess, the cost of living adjustment is going to be 2.8%, but we're seeing now that inflation annualized is actually 3%. So even though you are going to be receiving an increase of 2.8%, inflation is actually higher. The real inflation is actually higher. So we're only falling further and further behind. That's why it's very important that we have an inflation metric that follows the cost of living adjustment that's attached to the COLA every single year, that actually keeps up with inflation. That way you're not falling further and further behind every single year. But with that said, that's all we have for today's video. Once again, leave your thoughts and comments below. What do you think about the COLA increase? Are you happy with it? Leave your thoughts and comments below. But that's all we have for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.